The Trump administration announced last night that the 2020 U.S. Census will include a question about citizenship. Makes sense, right? It seems perfectly reasonable for the U.S. government to want to know how many citizens live in this country. Here's how far left immigration advocates reacted to the news.
What the Trump administration is trying to do is to weaponize the census so that they can use it to undercount people in California and other states with high immigrant population.
The federal government, including President Trump, has to justify why he would be weakening any type of census count or census standards. He needs to uphold the rule of law.
It's very clear what this administration is trying to do. They're trying to instill fear in the immigrant community.
I love the comment about the rule of law. That's rich. And naturally, the California Department of Justice filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration. It's at least the 27th time the Golden State has sued the Trump administration, including over DACA, the travel ban, the border wall. Pretty much any time the Trump administration burps, they get a lawsuit by California. To debate this census controversy is California Congressman Brad Sherman, who's a Democrat. Congressman, first of all, I want to say thank you for joining us. We invite Democrats on pretty much every night, and most decline. So thank you very much. We love having a spirited conversation about these issues. Okay, here's my quick question. First question.
Laura, it's good to be with you.
Fantastic.
But first, I need to correct the beginning of your show.
Oh, I love how, no, we're not correcting that. We'll get to that in a second. I want to focus on this first, and then we're going to get to, you can worry about correcting me later, but let's keep this focused on citizenship. Why are Democrats afraid of the U.S. government determining how many illegal immigrants are in the United States?
Well, first of all, this census question has nothing to do with how many illegal immigrants there are in the United States. They don't ask whether you're an illegal immigrant. They ask whether you're an immigrant.
It's a separate question.
Second,
we want to know how
there
many
is
people
no
are
attempt
citizens
in this
and
to determine that.
Okay. We want to know who is a citizen and a non-citizen.
And the purpose of this is clear. The purpose of this is to suppress not only immigrants from responding, but anybody who's got a cousin who's an immigrant. The studies have shown from the Census Department last year, under Trump administration, that this question will depress responses. This is a two-part approach. First, create incredible fear, the way the beginning of your show did, in immigrant communities. Castigate them, call them rapists and murderers, create an atmosphere.
So Congressman, so you're defending, are you defending the criminals that I talked about at the beginning of the show? Is that what you're doing, sir? You're defending the rapists, the child abusers, the murderers, the fentanyl traffickers. Really? Is that what you want to come on the show? Because I'll debate that morning, noon, and night. Let's do an hour on El Gordo, who tried to poison millions of New Yorkers with fentanyl. Let's talk about El Gordo. I mean, honestly, if this is where the Democrats just lose the American people. You are more worried about illegal immigrants than the legal residents of your own communities, time and again. And now you don't want us to know how many non-citizens
any chance I'll get a word in edgewise?
And that's another tactic. Yes, you can. But don't start coming on the show and saying, I want to correct what you said in the first segment. What I said in the first segment is factual. We have a criminal alien problem in the United States, and your state is a sanctuary disaster. That's the problem. Go ahead.
Laura,
can you breathe? Go ahead.
You came on and you showed the president saying that most immigrants, especially from Mexico, are rapists and murderers.
He didn't say most.
You know that's statistically false.
He didn't say the word most. You tell me where he said most. He didn't.
He said they're rapists and murderers, and some, he listed it at the third category. First category, rapist. Second category, murderers. And then a footnote to indicate that a few were good people. That's what the president said. But what did the beginning of your show say? You put up picture after picture of terrible criminals who happen to be people of color.
It's like
now, why don't
you like to see the baby in the womb? You don't want the truth. See, I'm here to tell the truth. You're here to tell a fantasy.
Laura, any chance I can get a word in edgewise?
Every illegal immigrant is like a valedictorian rescuing a puppy or a cat from the tree. That's your story. My story is the American victims out there who you and so many Democrats never pay attention to. And of course, there are good people who are working in hotels.
Laura, why do you invite me on the show if I'm not allowed to say anything?
No, because I will not allow a falsehood to stand on this show. But go ahead.
The falsehood is that immigrants are disproportionately criminal. There are 11 million people in this country without documents, and your crack staff found pictures of some who are terrible criminals.
How do we know how many are here?
We have pretty good estimates.
Where do we get the estimates?
You can't certainly send out a questionnaire and find out how many immigrants there are without documents in this country. The purpose of that is to destroy the census. We have very good estimators. Look, you're talking about a country that has an intelligence worldwide. We certainly can come relatively close to determining how many there are. And look, you want to say 10 to 12? Go right ahead. I'm saying 11. You say 10 to 12. Pick your own number.
I don't think anybody knows how many illegal immigrants in the country. It's like 12
can I get a word in edgewise here?
I mean, we don't know how many. That's one of the points we're making here. Citizens versus non-citizens.
We certainly can't find out through the census. The purpose of the census question is to destroy the census by getting people not to return their questionnaires. The purpose of the beginning of your show was to ignore the fact that crime is committed by all groups.
Well,
you have a crack staff, great producers.
That's such a bad argument. Congressman, do we need more crime
every
in
10 million
California,
people, look, you have more crime in California than Wyoming because you have more people in California than Wyoming.
So
every group of 10 million people.
Are we to tell the American people tonight that because the California wants to be sanctuary, fugitive state, whatever you want to call it, we have to sacrifice a certain number of Americans for this utopian idea that borders are pointless, that walls are bad, that the rule of law, when applied to, a family crossing the border wants a better life, you can't deport them.
Any chance I can get a word in here, Laura?
Die on the altar of that. I just think that's not a great argument. We want law and order across the board.
Laura, why do you even need me on the show? It's your show. You can just talk. Now, the fact is, if you want less crime, move to the Cayman Islands. They got so few people here. There you can go a whole week without a violent crime.
Is that your argument?
Well, the fact is that immigrants or any group of people, if you're going to have people in this country, there's going to be some crime.
In the country,
every group of 11 million people commits some crime. And if you had any chance I can get a word in here,
Congressman,
then have fewer people.
There is difference between illegal and legal. Do you not know the difference? Does it matter?
Any chance I can get a word in. The fact is, your show created the image.
During a pause. The census has routinely throughout its history asked questions about citizenship status, has it not? In the American survey,
that's not true.
Survey.
They stopped in 1950. They stopped about the time I was 4 years old and before you were born.
No, and then the American Family Survey actually picked it back up, correct?
That is not used as the official enumeration. The enumeration of this country is constitutionally required. And getting an accurate count in the enumeration is constitutionally more important than having facts about how many bedrooms there are and how many bathrooms there are in every house.
So do you
that we give a secondary priority to.
Do you think illegal immigrants should be accounting for the apportionment of the number of legislators a state has? So in other words,
the Constitution says that.
It doesn't
Felons
refer to illegal immigrants. It refers
they have to be counted.
Right. So what you're saying is illegal immigrants are actually citizens when it comes to the apportionment clause. There's a debate about that in legal circles. It's not determined.
The Constitution says that. The Supreme Court says that. The Abbott case reached that conclusion. And if you want to reverse that, fine. Try to pass a constitutional amendment, stack the court, and try to reverse the decision.
The Democrats want the money from the federal government to cover the illegal immigrants
in the census in an effort to achieve a constitutional result that you can't achieve through the courts.
You have to respond to census. So if people aren't going to respond to census, it's another reason they're breaking the law. You have to respond by law.
Well, you don't have enough money to get everybody to respond to the census.
You have to respond to the census.
They're deliberately underfunding the census, and then they won't get people to respond to the questionnaires.
We'll have you back, and I appreciate you joining us.